Well, good evening, YouTube folks everywhere. Thanks for joining us this evening. We are just 5 seconds from time to go live on the air. I have a script somewhere nearby, so let's just jump right into it. Good evening, and welcome to the North Georgia GMRS Regional Net. I'll be working off the flagship 675 repeater this evening, and we are linked in with the following repeaters: Somerville, Lookout Mountain, Jersey, Crawford, McDonough, Noonan, Columbus, Moreland, Zebulon, and the Zello VoIP link. Tonight, our RF coverage is easy for you to say, approximately 31,000 square miles. Our Zello coverage is worldwide. And once Starlink is in operation, and Elon Musk has operations on the moon and on Mars, we will be multi-planetary. So we're looking forward to that. This net takes place every Thursday evening at 7:30 p.m. I'd like to thank everyone who's made the North Georgia GMRS the most expansive and active GMRS network in the country. Your net control tonight is Atlanta 946, WQIR 514. My name is Justin, and I'm located at Studio B right here in Woodstock, Georgia. On the net, you can talk about your day's activities, radio equipment, or anything you think we'd like to hear about. This is a family-based network, so we encourage you to get your family involved. Once the floor is open, it is permissible to address other members of the net by their name or tactical unit number. Your FCC call sign is only required when you sign in and sign out of the net. At this time, I'd like to acknowledge our early check-ins. Let me break. And we got quite a list of them. Okay, we've got quite a list of early check-ins. We have 26 of them, including myself, so 25. So let me start off with Atlanta 313, Jason in Rome. Jason, thanks for checking in. It's great to hear from you. We have Noonan 25, Joe in Fayetteville. Joe is in and out with many radio duties that he participates in on a Thursday evening. And sometimes he comes back to us at the end of his activities, but sometimes he doesn't. But it's great to know that Joe's participating and actively campaigning in amateur radio as well as GMRS. Next on my list, I have Atlanta 420, William in Roswell. William is in with us this evening. Thanks, William. We have Chattanooga 69, Ronnie on the Lookout Mountain machine checking in tonight. We have Atlanta 403, Bobby in White County, Georgia, keeping an eye on the YouTube live stream for us. Bobby is in and out tonight. We have McDonough 22, Tim in Stockbridge. Tim's going to stick around and chat with us. We have Atlanta 308 and Atlanta 309. That would be Dan and Jackson, both in Marietta, checking in tonight. We have Atlanta 489, Tony incoming. Tony is in and out with us this evening. Thanks, Tony, for checking in. Appreciate you hanging out with us. We have Atlanta 138, Robert, who is currently at band practice. He may be able to chime in as we get to the end of this. We'll just have to wait and see. We have Atlanta 516, who is at the top of Lake Allatoona, as opposed to at the bottom of Lake Allatoona. So thanks, Ray, for checking in from Fields Landing Park. It's great to hear from you. We have Atlanta 91, Eric, checking in from Maumelle, Arkansas. Eric is in and out with us tonight, but appreciate that Zello check-in from all the way over in Arkansas. We have Atlanta 180, Mike in Cherry Log, in and out with us this evening. Thanks, Mike, for checking in. It's great to hear from you and your friend Atlanta 580, Matt from Inwood, West Virginia, checking in by way of Zello. It's great to hear from you, Matt. And I'm going to call on you here in a little while, and we'll chat a little bit more. So let's just stick around and listen for that. We have Atlanta 172, Greg in Bremen, in and out with us this evening. Thank you, Greg, for checking in tonight. We have Atlanta 538, Rob in Dawsonville. Thank you, Rob. We have Atlanta 252, Shad in Emerson. Shad, I had a tough time hearing you, but you're in the log. I'll be calling on you here in a little while. We have Atlanta 442, Craig in Ackworth. Craig may or may not talk with us this evening. It just depends on how long it takes us to call on him and whether or not he's had a chance to eat that steak. We have Noonan 29 Marty in Tyrone. Also has many things going on, and he might be back in time. So we'll call on Marty, and he'll either be there for us or we'll be looking for him. We'll just have to see how that plays out. So with that in mind, we'll move on to Atlanta 417. William in Auburn. William is in and out with us this evening, as is Atlanta 312 Stacy in Emerson, also in and out with us. So thank you both of you for checking in tonight. We have Atlanta 71. I'm sorry. I'm having a moment where numbers kind of transposition themselves and they don't make any sense to me. But it looks to me like it's actually 721 David in Rockmart. Thank you, David, for checking in tonight. We also have Atlanta 722 Lisa and Atlanta 723 Seth, also in Rockmart, checking in and out tonight. So thank you, both of you, for checking in with us. And I'm showing Atlanta 309 there, but we've already called on Jackson. So that's the end of my early bird check-ins. Let me break. Sorry about that. All right, sorry about that, folks. I had to address a particular cough. Okay, so, all right, let's go ahead and kick this thing into gear and start taking some check-ins. So at this time, we're going to take VoIP check-ins or Zello check-ins. Anyone who would like to check in on the Zello VoIP service, please call Net Control now. Nice big break, because we never know. Sometimes you're trying to get that push to talk and you just can't get it. But I think that's a big enough break. We probably already have all of our Zello check-ins. Might need to make some adjustments to our script, because it seems like we're getting our Zello check-ins during the early bird session, and that is perfect. So we may just expect that and abbreviate our check-in process a little bit. At this time, Net Control is going to take check-ins from any guests, visitors, or new users. This is anyone who is not a member but would like to check in, or any youth members. Please call Net Control now. All right, we'll go ahead and keep moving right along, and we'll look for check-ins from anyone on the flagship 675 machine. Please call Net Control now.
This is Atlanta 286, WRKN 234, checking in and out tonight, as well as Atlanta 285, checking in and out. We will be monitoring. Thank you.
This is Atlanta 780 WQUV 439 Houston and Powder Springs, Austell.
This is Atlanta 57 WQVC 82 Andrew in Holly Springs.
WRKN 464 Atlanta 402, Todd incoming, checking in and out. I will be monitoring in about 40, 50 minutes.
Okay, Net Control acknowledging Atlanta 286 and Atlanta 285. Lynn and CV both in Murrayville, both in and out this evening. It's great to hear from you, Lynn. Sounding terrific on that radio up there in Murrayville. Next on my list, I have Atlanta 780. Houston in Powder Springs. Houston, thank you for checking in with us this evening. Looking forward to talking with you. We have Atlanta 57, Andrew in Holly Springs, checking in with us this evening. It's great to hear from you, Andrew. And we have Atlanta 402, Todd in Cumming, checking in and out. Thank you, Todd, for checking in with us this evening. Understand you'll be able to monitor in a little while. Todd, once you do come back and you're able to monitor, if you want to jump in, please feel free to break in here, and we'd love to hear from you. Do we have any additional check-ins from, I'll tell you what, let's go ahead and just open it up to any repeater anywhere. And this will include the flagship 675 repeater. It will also include any youth members who would like to check in, or any guests or visitors. So anyone who would like to check in to the North Georgia GMRS Regional Net, please call Net Control now. All right, I heard Atlanta 228, Jeff in Waleska. Jeff, your audio is way, way, way low. If you can get closer to the microphone or speak a little bit louder into it, or find some way to improve your modulation, that would help a ton. I could hear you, but it was very, very low, and I'm concerned that anybody that's listening on a linked repeater is not going to be able to hear you at all. Any additional check-ins? Net Control is going to take one more standby before we jump up to the top and kick this thing off.
This is Atlanta 948, WRAR 430, Gary in Woodstock. Should be in and out.
All right, I've got Atlanta 948, Gary in Woodstock, and I heard that last check-in. I think about all I got out of that was Cartersville. Really tough copy on that signal. You weren't holding the repeater the whole time through, so that was chopping in and out, and modulation was a little bit low. If you can try that again from Cartersville, maybe speak a little bit louder into the microphone. Hopefully you can modulate through the noise. Alright, I believe I heard Derek. Let's see if I can find Derek in here from last week. Alright, I think I heard Atlanta 292, Derek in Cartersville. Can anybody confirm whether or not that's correct? Derek in Cartersville, was that correct, Atlanta 292? Okay, I'm guessing that is incorrect since we did not get an acknowledgement. I think we're just going to have to ask you to find a better location to transmit from, and see if you can get in here a little bit later. There'll be an opportunity to check in once we get through the list. So please stick around, and hopefully when it's time to come back again, we'll be able to get you in here. But no confirmation on that call, so I'm going to go ahead and knock that one out of the log, and hopefully if that is Derek, he can get in here after a bit. So at this time, let's go ahead and kick things into gear. You know, as I mentioned in that Facebook post, one of the toughest things that I do with regard to the net is coming up with a topic each week. And it seems like that wouldn't be that hard to do, but and there again, I have folks that throw suggestions and ideas out, but it's almost something that needs to be related to what's kind of going on. So a couple of things that have been going on this week has been a discussion about radios and antennas and SWR, and all of that kind of comes into what's going on at your station, what's going on at your setup, your mobile, your HT, and how are you able to get in? And most of the people that are on the list got in quite well. But just as an example, we had that last check-in. I just couldn't read that signal well enough. And the only thing that I know for sure that I heard was Cartersville. I don't know what else I heard in that. So I heard part of a TAC number, and I think I heard 2 something, but I don't know if it was 292 or if it was 2 baloney. I don't know. So with a weak signal, it sometimes is really, really challenging to pull somebody out of the noise. So lots of us have opportunities, but we should be back. I have to watch that for a moment. But as I was saying, when we have a marginal station, we have an opportunity to take measures to improve our signal. And there's things that we can do easily and simply that can get us partway there. But a lot of it ends up turning into just trial and error. You buy an antenna, or you buy some pipe to try to get it up higher, or you throw money at it. Ultimately, is what you end up doing is throw money at it until you get a station that performs to your satisfaction. And that's what I'll be doing here. I'll be throwing some money at this station to get it performing so that it can hit both the flagship and the Blue Ridge machine reliably. And I'm hoping that when that happens, I'll also be able to hit currently the Somerville machine. But ultimately, that's going to end up being moved to Rome. I'm hoping that I can hit Rome when that happens. And I don't know, maybe Bremen will be an option as well. So get a little more elevation on my antenna and try a couple of things in terms of directional antennas, Yagi and stuff like that, although I prefer an Omni. But in any case, there's a number of things that we can do to improve the station right here at Studio B. So with that in mind, let's go ahead and go through our list and see if Atlanta 313 Jason in Rome has any comments or any plans for improving your station over there in Rome.
I would like to get me a good base station and a good antenna and help some good people like y'all, because the more I do this, the more I enjoy it. And a while ago, you was way low, but now when you come in through this time, you was nice and loud.
Yeah, sometimes the microphone gets moved away from my face a little bit, and just a little bit of difference in that microphone placement. It's a boom microphone on this headset, and just a little bit of difference in that can make a huge volume and huge difference in terms of my audio volume. So I do need to pay closer attention to that, but thank you for pointing that out. And yeah, Jason, you've got a great location there, because we do plan to locate a repeater in the Rome area, right up there on that ridge on the other side of Rome. I know the railroad's got a location up there. I've been up there many times. I don't know exactly where North Georgia GMRS is locating up there yet, but I know it's not going to be on the railroad site, because the railroad doesn't play well with others. But there are plenty of tower sites on that ridge line, so that'll be cool to get up there. And I think that will have excellent coverage for the Rome, Rockmart, Silver Creek area, and I think we'll get some on the other side of that over into northeastern Alabama as well. So I'm looking forward to that. That'll be later in the year. Late this year, early next year, I would say, before we can get to Rome, just based on what our calendar is looking like now. So, but that's exciting stuff, and I'm really looking forward to that, and I hope that's one that I can hit from here. Next on my list is Noonan 25, Joe in Fayetteville. Joe is in and out tonight. He's probably busy doing the Georgia Oxcom or some such thing. He is a very active radio enthusiast, and we appreciate Joe being involved as much as he can. Next on my list is Atlanta 420, William in Roswell. William, do you have any plans? What do you have set up for your station over there, and what are your goals for improvements?
Well, I tell you, Justin, I was just now working on something. I was listening in when I switched over to RF there, and had a antenna mystery there. I was on the Yagi and had omnidirectional and had to switch out on the two, but I kept playing with it and switched back and forth between the base station radio, and one of them didn't want to work. But so I went back to one antenna, which I'm talking to you on now, but then did a little jumper cable with my handheld, and I'm able to receive you fine. So it's just a mystery there. I can't figure out why both antennas aren't working on the base station. They should, but they're both operational. I'm able to use the handheld on the other there. Other than that, I don't know. I've just been kind of busy trying to take care of projects around the house here and trying to motivate and inform new members and sharing information. You guys have been doing a fantastic job, and we really, really appreciate all the efforts and the works that you guys have been doing. It's a great job. And please send your coupons for one free drink anytime for Monday there. It's my birthday there, so if you want to mix me up a cocktail there and send it by Amazon or a coupon, I'll definitely take donations firmly on that. So that's it for me there, Justin. You take care and have a wonderful weekend there and beginning of summer there. Over.
Well, I would love to invite you over for a free drink at the Tiki Bar for your birthday. However, Mondays are one of the days that the bartender has off, so you certainly don't want me mixing a drink for you because it will probably taste like Coca-Cola. With that in mind, happy early birthday. We will be out of the area, probably returning on Monday, but we're definitely going to be out of pocket. So, but happy birthday! And yes, your comments about mystery radio stuff. There was an evening I had Atlanta 123 come over to help push buttons at Studio B and just kind of join in and hang out and tag along. And when he showed up, I was having some difficulty getting on the air. I had called out for several radio checks. I got no answers, and a little bit panicked here. So I continued calling out for radio checks. I continued looking things over with my station. I couldn't find anything wrong. I worked at that for some time, and then I went ahead and failed over to my backup radio because I just assuming that something had gone wrong in the radio, and that's why I couldn't get into the repeater. And so I spent several minutes trying to get radio checks and trying to get on the air to start the net on the backup radio here in the studio, and we couldn't get on the air. So in a bit of a panic, I grabbed a laptop, and I had Tim come on out to the truck with me, Studio F150, and we fired up the radio in there. Now this is the third radio that I'm on for the evening, and I come on the air and I read the whole preamble and let's get started with the net, and crickets. Nobody is out there. It's 7 or 8 minutes past the time we're supposed to start. And I am scratching my head trying to figure out what on earth could possibly be wrong with three different radios, and I can't get out at all. Well, let me give you a little clue. There wasn't anything wrong with any of my radios. It was the pine log repeater that had failed. I just wasn't smart enough to figure it out. But in an act of desperation, we were out at Studio F150, and we switched over to Sassafras, and we heard all kinds of people talking about, don't know what happened to net control, nobody seems to be on the air, and maybe he'll figure out that Pine Log is down, and maybe he'll figure it out and come over here. And So I waited for a break in traffic so that I could come on and announce my presence. And 10 or 12 or 13 minutes late, we started the net over there on the other repeater. So it's important that we have a secondary path. And mysteries sometimes are not as difficult to solve as we make them. But good stuff, William. Next on my list is Chattanooga 6'9", Ronnie in Lookout Mountain. Ronnie, what is the state of your station, and what plans do you have this year? I sometimes forget that Lookout Mountain machine has a timeout timer. It's a little bit shorter than the rest of ours. And Ronnie may not have heard me call him. Chattanooga 6'9", Ronnie on the Lookout Mountain machine. Ronnie, what is the state of your station, and what plans do you have to improve it this year? Okay, hearing nothing from Ronnie, I'm going to go ahead and show him in and out on the log. And we're going to go ahead and move along to Atlanta 403, Bobby in White County. Bobby has already alerted me to a streaming failure error. I still don't know what's making that happen, but it happened, and we got it resolved. So hopefully we can keep that working for those who are watching the stream. So thank you, Bobby, for that heads up, and let me know if it happens again. McDonough 22, Tim in Stockbridge. Tell me about the state of your station, and what do you plan to do this year? Do you have any station improvements in mind?
Well, Justin, I guess I'm not one of the really ambitious ones. I'm at the stage in life where I don't have a lot of leftover dollars to spend. I would like to do a lot of things that the old bank account won't allow me to do. So for the time being anyway, I'm kind of sticking with the handheld here at home and the Kenwood in the truck, and ordering a couple more handhelds because I do not have a radio of any kind or antenna on my secondary vehicle. I just got one in the work truck, Kenwood, which I drive. Have a handheld to keep in the car because I'm usually not too far away from the McDonough repeater. That car doesn't get driven a whole lot, and mostly just around the Stockbridge, McDonough area. So I don't know. I guess that's about the whole 9 yards for me there, Justin. I'll turn it back to you.
Well, it's never a bad idea to have an extra HT laying around that if your primary HT goes dead on its battery, or if it gets dropped in the water, or the 948's got one of these BTEC GMRS V1s, and the volume knob is a little wonky on it. So you know, if you turn it on and it's just barely on, it's fine. If you turn it up a little bit, you can't hear anything. And then if you turn it up a whole bunch, then it'll play really, really loud. So it's barely audible or crazy loud and nothing in between. And it's just that pot is damaged, I suppose. It may have been dropped. Who knows what caused that to happen. But it happened, and so that's what he's got to contend with. And also his A button on his push-to-talk pair is also damaged. There's no you can't feel any detent with it. It's like the button has just kind of broken inside of its enclosure. So there again, it may have been a result of a drop. It may have been who knows. But in any case, I think he's due for a new radio. I think that would do him a lot of good to get his hands on another radio, so that when this one does finally bite it, he's got something he can fall back to. He's got a base radio, that he could use, but that's inconvenient for him at times. So he depends a lot on his BTEC radio, and as many do. And I can tell you that he has no intentions or plans of making any improvements to his station because he's pretty happy with it as it stands. So with that, let's go ahead and move on to Atlanta 308. Dan in Marietta. Dan, can you tell me about the state of your station, and do you have any improvements that you'd like to make?
Good evening, Justin. Good evening to the net. I think at this point it's about what improvements have I made to finally be in a decent position. Like me, have got into the hobby with sort of some basic gear and learned quickly that to hit the repeaters and to come in loud and clear, we were going to need to make some additional investments, better cable, better antennas, and eventually that led to the whole technician's license and sort of merging into the ham world. But I think my next improvement is going to be to my entrance panel grounding. We talked a little bit about that on Facebook, but I got an order placed with the KF7P website, who does some of the ham grounding boxes, a couple of polyphasers, and I'm gonna do a better job at that than I have today. So that's probably the next thing. I'm just waiting on a little bit of a back order from him that I'll be doing. Over.
Very cool. Yes, an excellent grounding system. I might say. I modeled my my grounding system kind of on what I saw in images from that website. I ordered a couple of boxes from Automation Direct, and they had the best price for the box that I wanted. I wanted an electrical box that didn't have all of the knockouts punched in it, so that it would only have whatever holes I made in it. And that's not something you can get from the typical electrical supply houses. Those boxes are all riddled with knockouts on every which side, and it's just ridiculous. So, and that's not what I wanted. I wanted a clean, solid electrical box that would have a lid that's easy to take off or open, and that could be electrically grounded. And so that's what I built on the side of the house. I've got two of them actually, one for HF and VHF, and the other one for UHF, GMRS. And so I've got my polyphasers mounted in the enclosure through the bulkhead, so that there's no need for grommets or anything like that. My polyphasers are grounded to a bus, which is bonded to the metal case, and then the bus also has grounds that go directly to a ground rod. But I know that those cases, those boxes that you're talking about, have, I believe, a copper panel in the back of the box that everything bonds to, and that's very cool. So that should be about as good as it gets in terms of grounding, and is very, very similar to what I see at some of the commercial installations. So that's good stuff. The only thing you need beyond that is a good network of ground rods. Start with one, and be sure and bond that to your utility electric, and then as time and money becomes available, expand your grounding grid into a pattern that makes sense for your installation. And the more ground rods you have, the better your propagation is going to be, especially when you get into HF. So good stuff. That's a great place to spend time and money, is on grounding. So good stuff, Dan. Let's see if it's Atlanta 309 Jackson. Jackson, are you enjoying the radio hobby, and are you going to take a technician exam?
Yes, maybe one day.
Well, I think that you'll find a lot of good use and application from a technician license. There's a lot of cool things that you can participate in and it would be a cool thing. I kind of wish that I'd gotten into radio when my kids were younger. My kids are all grown now, and they just give me weird looks when I talk to them about, hey, let's do something with radios. But you're at a great age, and I think there's lots of opportunity for adventure in radio. So I definitely would encourage you to get involved. But meanwhile, the GMRS license that Dan holds covers your participation in GMRS radio. You don't have to take any test for that. So glad to hear you on here, Jackson. Tell me a little bit about yourself, and tell me a little bit about your plans and aspirations.
Okay, so I'm just starting high school, and this is my first net, and I'm glad to be here. And we're having a little bit of trouble setting up a base station in my room. We're having trouble with the signal, and we're looking to make any improvements to the antenna.
So you're going to set up a GMRS base station in your bedroom as well as whatever Dan has set up?
Yeah, basically.
Okay. Well, I can tell you from my experience, we've got 2 radios here in the studio, and we've got another radio out at the Tiki Bar. There's a 4th radio out at the barn, but it currently doesn't have power. But it's got an antenna. And basically all of these radios are separate systems. The radios in the studio share a power supply, but that's the only thing that they share. They have separate coax, they have separate grounding, they have separate antennas, separate polyphasers. Everything is, each radio has its own stuff. So there's no antenna switching that's being done. It's just when I use the one radio, power on, and push to talk and microphone connected, and when I use the other radio, I power the net control radio, the main radio, off, and my day-to-day radio is a lower power radio with a hand mic on it. So it's, as simple as it gets. And so the radio I'm talking to you on now is complicated. It's routed, audio is routed through a mixing console and direct boxes and all kinds of stuff going on with that. And then I've got separate push-to-talk buttons all over the place, so if I have people in here, they each have their own push-to-talk, and it's complicated, and it breaks, and it's, But simple is the way to go. So if you're setting up a separate radio station in the house, keep it simple and keep it separate. That's the idea, separate. Trying to combine things, trying to share antennas, is an unnecessary complication, and my experience is it doesn't really save you any money. It just makes you drill less holes in the house. So hope that's helpful, and Jackson, it's great to hear you on the air. Glad that you're able to join us tonight. Looking forward to hearing more from you, and congratulations on starting off with high school. Big adventures yet to come, and grab hold of every opportunity you can get, because one day you'll look back on this time and think about all the things that could have been. So good stuff, Jackson. Glad to hear from you. And with that, I'm going to go ahead and move on to Atlanta 489. Tony incoming. Tony was in and out with us this evening. And that brings me next to Atlanta 138. Robert. Robert is at band practice at the moment, but historically, when he finishes up with band practice, he sometimes will chime in. So we'll see if Robert is available later on. That brings me next to Atlanta 516, Ray, at the top of Lake Allatoona. Ray, have you been to the bottom of Lake Allatoona?
No, I haven't, Justin.
Good.
I was just making a little pun there because the other day somebody was saying that my sign-in when I talk on the radio sounds like a recording. So I said, you know what? I'm going to really mix it up. So I got out a piece of paper and I wrote down what I said when I checked in. And every time I'm going to do it a little different, try to put a lot of humor into it.
Well, that's good stuff, and I've been having lots of fun with your top of the lake check-in. So we'll see what you come up with next time and see if I can have fun with that as well. Ray, what are you using for a radio station, and do you have any improvements in mind this year?
my GMRS, I have a VTech 50X1, and that's mounted in my console, according to the pictures that I posted on Facebook. And I have, I don't know what the antenna number is, right in the center of the roof of my truck. It's on a magnet mount, and I have an ICOM ID 5100A that's in my dash, and the head unit's on the top.
Very nice. Okay, so that's the equipment that you're operating now. What are you using as your home unit? Are you using the HT for that?
I have an HT, but I really don't use it. When I broadcast from home, I'm sitting in my truck. But when our house is finally built, I will have a dedicated base station in the house.
So that's the project for this year is building a house for the radio. That sounds like a great project and a noble task, and I wish you the best and success in that. How's that coming along? Are you making any progress with that? I know that the construction industry is nuts right now.
The house is up. I mean, all the walls are up. Everything, the roof is on. The siding is on. All the high voltage and low voltage is run. The plumbing is run. All we're waiting for now is, the sheetrock to all be done, the plastering and the painting. And according to the builder and the contractors, we should be in the house by August.
Oh, that is exciting stuff. That'll be here quick. So we're looking at 6-ish weeks. So fantastic. That's exciting. I'm glad to hear that that's coming along, and that we soon will have a new location for which to build a base station. That's great stuff. All right, Ray. Well, stay on top of the lake, and I hope that you have a great week coming up. Next, I have Atlanta 9-1 Eric checking in by way of Zello, our VoIP service from Maumelle, Arkansas. Thank you, Eric, for checking in and out with us tonight. It's great to hear from you. That brings me next to Atlanta 180 Mike in Cherry Log. Mike is checking in and out with us this evening, but he tells me that his good friend Atlanta 580 Matt from Inwood, West Virginia may be checking in tonight. And lo and behold, he did immediately following Mike. So Matt from Inwood, West Virginia, welcome to North Georgia GMRS. And do you have any radio ambitions or plans to make improvements to your station this year?
Hello, everybody. I'm kind of excited about several things. I think I finally got my first homemade antenna working the way I want it. I still haven't made many contacts on HF, but I'm excited about it. For kind of long-term ambitions, I joke with my dad that, who's Mike, by the way, that I wanted to try and figure out a way to do a file transfer bouncing off of a satellite. And I would send him a file that was copyrighted, so that way I would technically be a space pirate. And, other than that, just trying to get a hold of my dad on HF from up here. It's kind of my long-term plans, but the equipment, I think, is right at the moment. I just need to work on my own skills.
Well, your radio skills sound like they are just fine in terms of the vocal aspect of it. So I think you're in excellent shape. So it sounds like you've had a good mentor along the way, and so that's very good stuff. And definitely look forward to hearing more from you. And what a cool thing to be able to shoot HF over the way across Tennessee and get into North Georgia and have a QSO with your dad on the radio. That's very cool. I'm a little bit jealous about that, but I tell you, I gotta love the bouncing the copyrighted file off of the satellites. I'm betting it was a fairly small file, because oftentimes those satellite passes, you only get a couple of minutes of coverage on them, and you would have to have coverage at both sites. So, but Space Pirate, I love it. That is fantastic. But yeah, Noonan 2.5 is also one of those who has good practice and good skills at making contacts via satellite. He's very active in that. In fact, he has this very fancy, very cool antenna. It's a handheld antenna that you might expect somebody to use whether they're searching for a signal. It's kind of a direction finding antenna. And it's got two sets of elements on it. On one plane, it has VHF elements, and 90 degrees away from that, it has also a set of UHF elements. And it has two antenna leads that come off of it, so he can attach that antenna to a pair of radios and have one set up to transmit VHF and another one set up to receive UHF, and he's able to make satellite contacts using that antenna, and it gets him a little more time on the satellite. He picks it up earlier on the horizon, and he's able to track it, by manually swinging it as it moves overhead for a longer period of time on the other horizon. So it's a neat setup that he's got. It's fun to watch him work it, and satellite passes and satellite comms are a very cool thing. The first time I heard about that, I thought that is the coolest thing, and it was on one of these nets. And he was given the frequencies and the time of the pass, and the time of the pass was just 20 minutes after one of our nets. And so I plugged in frequencies into one of my Bofang radios and went out and stood in the driveway with a high gain whip antenna, and I was able to hear Joe, and I was able to get on, and when Joe played back his recording later, I was able to hear myself in his recording. So I know that my signal made the satellite and came back down. He didn't acknowledge me, so I guess it doesn't really count as a contact, but I count it because I know that I have verification that it made it the round trip. So satellite passes are a fun thing to do, without a doubt. So Space Pirate, way to go. With that, I'm going to go ahead and move on to Atlanta 172. Greg in Bremen. Greg is in and out with us this evening as he's doing his chores and taking care of the animals. Thanks, Greg, for hanging out with us. Hope you have a great evening. Brings me next to Atlanta 538, Rob in Dawsonville. Rob, do you have any comments about your station? And do you have any plans for improvements this year?
Good evening, Justin, and good evening to the net. Yeah, I'm pretty new to GMRS and pretty new to radio. There's always room for improvement. Right now, I am about 20 miles from Sassafras Repeater, running a VTEC GMRS 50, and I have a little mobile whip that is just clamped to my workbench in my man cave. So hopefully that's getting out okay. I'd really like to install a Ed Fong that I bought a couple months ago on the side of the house. But basically, I feel like I'm getting out pretty well with the little whip that's actually under the roof of my house. So I'm kind of at a crossroads. If it ain't broke, don't fix it. But there's always room for improvement, and I'm always looking forward to the future. Over.
Well, indeed, your station sounds fantastic, and so you're getting into the repeater very, very well. I'm about 30 miles from flagship. So I'm a little bit farther away from you, but I've got a high gain antenna on 30 feet of mast and excellent grounding system, and so that's my advantage, I suppose, is that I have good line of sight to the repeater, and so that's how I'm able to get in. And Pine Log was even easier when it was alive. That was only about 16 miles from me, and it's all you got to do is with an HT, you just walk around the property and you get at Pine Log without any trouble at all. So that was very nice, very convenient thing to have. But yeah, sometimes the improvements to the station come in different ways. Maybe it's that you'll add a second station somewhere else in the house. Some folks like to have another station out in the garage or places where they hang out. I've got a tiki bar in the back of the property, and we put a radio there so that I can monitor traffic while we're hanging out at the tiki bar, watching TV or grilling food or just watching the birds and the squirrels messing around in the backyard. I like to listen to the radio while those things are happening, and sometimes I'll even grab the mic out there and get on it. But so I've got multiple operating positions around the property here, and each one is its own radio. So if that sickness strikes, then you may be putting antennas up all over your property as well. But who knows what'll come. But glad to have you in here, and glad to have you as part of the group, Rob. So look forward to talking with you more. Next on my list is Atlanta 252, Shad in Emerson. Shad, see if you can talk nice and loud into that microphone and break through the noise. And tell us what you have for a station and what improvements you hope to make this year.
Point 252. Right now we're on Zillow.
Okay.
And a couple handhelds. I've got a vacation coming up week after next. Looking to add a mobile station to our travel camper.
Ah, yes, a mobile in the camper, the RV. That would be a great operating position to have a station. And what's cool about that is now you've got a base of operations, and so you can put GMRS radios, HTs, in your kids' hands as they go out and about, or your spouse or what have you, and you can stay in contact from the campsite to the various field operations that may be going on. So that can be a very valuable tool in that scenario. And then when you get back, you could always pull that radio out and install it as a base somewhere on the property. So good stuff. That's a great idea. And yes, Zello does work well in a pinch. Sometimes the HTs just don't have what we need to get all the way through. I don't know if that Bremen location will help you up there in Emerson or not, but hopefully the Rome location will. But like I say, we're going to be a little while before we get to that. But hopefully that Rome location will do you some good over there in Emerson and maybe get in a little bit better. But yeah, that would be my suggestion, is go ahead and put that mobile in that camper, and then when you're done with the camper for the season, maybe you can pull that out and use that as a base. But good stuff. Great talking with you, Shad, and look forward to catching up with you again. Let me ask you real quick, is Stacy operating on a completely different station?
No, she's right here with me.
Well, I was curious about that because the sound of when she called in, the sound was so very different. But that's interesting that it was the same station. But great to have you both in here, and tell her hello for me. I've got her in a log as in and out, so I won't call on her. But thank you for that. And with that, I'm going to go ahead and move on to Atlanta 442. Craig in Ackworth. Craig, are you finished with your stakes? Well, I'd be concerned the stakes have gotten cold by now, but maybe he's not close enough to the radio to hear. All right. Well, I think that silence is answer enough that that Craig is busy consuming those steaks that were just recently seared, and now, if I were enjoying a meal like that, I probably wouldn't come on the air either. So thank you, Craig, for checking in this evening. Hope you're able to get back and monitor with us in a little while, and feel free to jump in if you do. That brings me next to Noonan 29. It's unusual to have Marty check in so early in a net, but here he is, and he indicated that he might not be available when it was time to call on him, but I'm going to take the chance that he is, and I'm going to say, Marty, do you have any operating, not operating, what am I talking about? Do you have any improvements that you'd like to make to your station, and what kind of equipment are you operating? All right. So Marty had indicated he might not be back in time, and it appears as though that is the case. And that's fine. But thank you, Marty, for checking in with us this evening. And we'll go ahead and move on next to Atlanta 417, William in Auburn. William is in and out with us tonight. And that brings me next to Atlanta 312, Stacy in Emerson, also in and out tonight. Thank you, both of you, for checking into the North Georgia GMRS net. It's great to have you along. And that's going to bring me next to Atlanta 721, David in Rockmart. David, do you have any improvements you plan to make to your station? And what are you operating these days?
Yes, sir. Sorry, had the other one on scan. Yes, sir, Justin. Good evening, everyone. What I've got so far is at the house is a base. I've got a Kenwood 880 standard 25 watt running on a 3-element Yagi. And then I've got a Vertex 2200 LPR on an Ed Fong J-pole on my back porch, just with a 15-foot pole on the back porch. The Yagi I've actually got in my attic, so I want to switch that out to a larger Yagi. But I'm thinking about not even moving the Yagi since I'm getting into flagship so well, and just use Bremen for handhelds around the house. I've got a handful of the Kenwood TK380s and 373s. I got Motorola's on the way. I got a lot of radio projects going on.
Well, you know, I feel like I've got a lot of radio projects going on as well. I was just talking with Atlanta 60 the other day about our next tower visit to flagship and the work that we are hoping to get done the next time that we go. And there's at least a day's worth of work up there yet to do, and I'm hoping that all of the tower work can be completed on the next climb. I'm not sure if that's going to be true or not, but as being one who's not on the tower, I still would like very much to get that work done, because that means we can move on to some of the other things that we need to do. And we've got work to do also at the Blue Ridge site, and we've got work to do to get Bremen up and playing, and we've got a couple of other projects that are on the books for this year. So one thing at a time, but I'm anxious. I'd really like to see these things finish up and come into play. So you're mentioning Bremen. I'm excited about the Bremen location, because I think there's a lot of people that are marginal today that will have big improvements once Bremen comes online. And I think that we're also hopefully we're going to see some significant improvements in coverage once we get the linking completed for the Blue Ridge site. And so we'll see what happens when all that comes together. But very good stuff. Well, David, yeah, I tell you, the Yagi is probably fine the way it is. The Ed Fong is that's a great antenna. In fact, that's what I'm using on my day-to-day radio. When you hear me through the week, that's on an Ed Fong antenna. So I'm 31 miles to the repeater. I think that you're probably 45, I would bet. Maybe a little more. I'm not sure how that particular triangle plays out, but that's a nice job getting in there the way that you do. So good stuff. And next on my list, I have Atlanta 722 Lisa and Atlanta 723 Seth, also in Rockmart. Both of them are in and out tonight. And technically next on my list is Atlanta 309 Jackson, but we've already spoken with him, so we'll go ahead and move right on to Atlanta 286 and Atlanta 285. That would be Lynn and CV, both in Murrayville, both in and out tonight. And that brings me next to Atlanta 780 Houston in Austell. And I'm sorry, he's not in Austell. He's in Powder Springs, anxiously waiting to go back to Austell, building a new enclosure for his base radios. Houston, do you have any improvements you'd like to talk about?
Hi, good evening, Justin. Good evening to the rest of the group. I don't know. The best improvement was was to be able to get somebody to work on that enclosure. But they're supposed to be around Tuesday again to re-inspect, and hopefully then they'll start on it. But no, I've got the Vertex 22 LTR here in the camper, and I've got a Yagi 3-element on a extendable telescopic pole. I think it's about 20 foot, I think. And got my UHF VHF radio on top of it. We're just making do till we get back to the house. And I don't know if you heard the other day or not, but I did hit sassafras from here in Powder Springs with a walkie-talkie that's a little 1250. And seemed to work real good.
Wow, no, I didn't hear you the other day when you were doing that. I kind of wish that I had. That's pretty cool. Some days are better than others when it comes to RF. Is that something you can do regular?
I think so, as long as I'm outside. I've talked on it a couple of times outside. Of course, you can't do much inside of a camper that's metal shell, but yeah, it seems there must be a pretty good line of sight from where I'm at in Powder Springs to Flagship.
Ah, that's pretty cool. That's pretty cool. Let me ask you, what have you done with regards to grounding on your station there at Powder Springs?
No grounding. I don't guess there's any way to ground it here at the camper. If I hear a thunderstorm or anything coming up, I just unplug everything and take all the antennas loose. And, stay safe.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. I hear you. And yeah, grounding would be a challenge in that environment. I suppose you could maybe bond to the earth ground of the electric service. That would be better than nothing. I don't know how much of an impact that would have on your RF grounding. Certainly some, but at least that would give you some protection against anything that might come in on your antennas, particularly static electricity. So you might consider just simply bonding your antenna or radios to the earth ground in addition to the negative on the power supply. So something to think about. Just be sure that you can do that without damaging your power supply, and hopefully you can. Should be able to. Come to think of it, all of my radios are going to be they're bonded to ground and to the negative on the power supply, so no ill effects. I haven't seen any smoke come from the power supply, and everything seems to be working fine, so you should be all right. So glad to hear it, Houston, and hopefully that new base station enclosure will come along quickly and smoothly. I know we're kind of past quickly, but let's just keep hoping it doesn't take too much longer. Next on my list is Atlanta 57, Andrew in Holly Springs. Andrew, do you have any station improvements you plan to make this year?
Good evening, Justin, everyone on the net. Probably the improvement I will probably be doing shortly, of course when I say shortly, I don't know how long that means, but would be to get more of a permanent mast for my NMO ground plane antenna that I'm currently talking on. Right now it's on PVC pipe, which of course is not necessarily the most sturdy. So hopefully I'll be doing that. Maybe some top fence rail or something along the lines of that at some point this year. But that's what I'm talking on, an NMO ground plane antenna, LMR 400, grounded by an 8-foot ground rod, and then my radio is a XTL 5000 Motorola. So that's about the only improvement I think I can make at the moment without going too crazy financially and structure-wise.
Ah, yes. Well, you know, that reminds me of an antenna that we had set up at 940's place before she moved. Had two 10-foot pieces of, I don't remember exactly what it was, probably 2-inch PVC with an Ed Fong antenna inside of a PVC tube in the end of that with a reducer. So it was just a bunch of pipe sticking up in the air, and of course in the heat of summer, PVC 20 feet of PVC supported at about 10 feet does not hold its shape real well, and so she had a very horizontal polarized antenna at that location, but you sure couldn't tell it when she came on the air. She had excellent signal coverage into the repeater, despite the lazy mast that the antenna was on. So hopefully we'll get some sort of a GMRS radio station set up at her new location sometime soon. Not sure what her plans are with regard to that yet, but looking forward to getting her back on the air. Yeah, so the chain link fence top rail is something that, you know, I've got 30 feet of it on two different masts here, and one of the things that I've noticed is that, you know, even though it's bracketed about halfway up, it's not as rigid as I'd like it to be, and my masts move around in the breeze a lot more than I'd like. And so I've had a couple of things in mind to try to mitigate that. But the other thing that I have is I have another antenna here I want to put up, and I want to get some more elevation on it. So I want to go 40 feet instead of 30 feet. And so, you know, I'm going to take a look at those 21-foot sticks of chain link fence top rail. If I can reduce the number of joints, maybe I can get the rigidity that I want, and maybe I can get it in something bigger than 1 5/8. Well, the last several pieces of 10-foot top rail that I bought were in the $12 to $13 range. I don't know what they are today. I expect them to be higher because everything is. But when I was looking online at pricing for 21-foot pieces, the cheapest I found were $65. And you know, like places like Lowe's and Home Depot, you're not going to go to the store and buy it. You got to go to the store and order it and wait for it to come in. So, and like at Lowe's, it was $85 for a 21-foot piece of 17 gauge chain link fence top rail, 1 5/8 inch. So yeah, I don't mean to scare you, but I would suggest for your location, 2 10-foot sticks should be adequate, and you can make a very simple house bracket out of a couple of pieces of board, and that seems to work very well. I would just be sure that you have really good grounding. I know that Alex can help you drive some ground rods with the hammer drill that he has, And if he's too busy or you're not able to get a hold of him, I have a hammer drill as well and can help you drive some ground rods if you need to. So good stuff, Andrew. And yeah, I know what you mean by you're planning to do soon, but I'm also planning to do some antenna work soon, and it's looking like mid-July will be the soonest I can start on it, just because of everything that's going on around here between then and now. We've got some travel coming up and some other things going on, so that kind of slows progress down. And I know that you've had some travel here recently as well, and who knows what you've got coming up. But I'll be in contact with you at some point once I have a date. Don't have anything at this time. Next on my list is Atlanta 402, Todd incoming. Todd is in and out with us this evening, but that brings me next to Atlanta 228, Jeff in Waleska. Jeff, do you have any improvements you'd like to make to your station this year?
Good evening, Justin. Is my modulation better now?
It's clear. It's just very low. You're getting through. It's just your audio is very, very low. But go ahead with your traffic and let's see how we do.
Well, my station is currently in the state of confusion because this seems to be like the Bermuda Triangle.
Oh.
You, Scott, and Bob, Atlanta 403 have been helping me here trying to get some problem solving going. And today my SWR meter came in. I literally just installed it. Made no other changes, and now I'm getting in from my back porch.
Well, you know, that's a great tool to have in terms of seeing what's going on with the antenna system. It can give you a lot of information in terms of how efficient your system is radiating or can radiate. But it doesn't always tell the whole story. So one of the things that I've learned along the way is that SWR is a useful but not dependable number. And so with that in mind, there's a lot that we can derive from that information, but we can still have an inefficient system even with excellent SWR numbers. So but that doesn't really explain your modulation being low. I'm curious about that. You sound better now than you did when you checked in. I'm assuming that's because you're speaking loudly into the radio. I kind of get that sense. And that helps. It certainly helps. But you know, I don't want you to have to operate that way all the time. So we need to figure out why your modulation seems low. And you mentioned a Bermuda Triangle of radio. I'm going to tell you, I've been with Gary to the Pine Log site when it was operational. And one of the tests that we did while we were up at that site was we put a spectrum analyzer on the receive antenna for Pine Log. And the amount of RF noise at 460 megahertz is tremendous. It's tremendous. So I can't remember what the numbers are specifically, but I can tell you that looking at that field of noise on the scope, our signal is definitely above that, and you can see when someone is transmitting, to the Pine Log site, we're above the noise, but the noise is so high that it really did impact the quality of the receive, and being in that Waleska area, I can bet that there's just a ton of noise surrounding you, just making that whole RF environment that much more challenging to work in. So that's not something that an SWR meter is going to be able to convey to you. You really need a service monitor or a spectrum analyzer to be able to see that. But it's very interesting. When you just get away from that 460 megahertz a little ways, one way or the other, you see the noise floor drop rapidly. Now, one of the signals that we did see in that 460 was some telemetry. Don't know where it was coming from. I don't remember exactly what the frequency was, but it was very near us, and it was a digital kind of a growly noise, and it pulsed. And I think that might be similar to something that you were talking about or had experienced up in that area. So it is going to be a challenging environment. So one of the things that we can maybe do at your station to avoid some of that RF noise that exists over there is transition from an Omni to a more directional antenna, a Yagi or a beam of some sort, so that you can maybe shield yourself or escape from some of that radiation that's coming in and interfering with your signal. But hopefully you're hearing the flagship repeater just fine, because that frequency is off far enough away from the noise. I think you'll be okay. But it doesn't really explain why your modulation seems low. So what type of radio are you using?
Well, as we were discussing on Facebook, I'm still gathering the pieces to get my mobile setup in my truck together. So right now I'm simply on a 5-watt HT, and I was never able to receive or transmit from my property until today, putting an SWR meter in between the antenna and the radio. It kind of doesn't make sense.
Yeah. I don't know what that means. That's radio can be a funny thing. So I'd be curious to see what happens later when you go back to your normal operating configuration, because typically you don't leave an SWR meter in the circuit, although some hams do. But that's interesting stuff. Well, we'll have to explore that, and maybe we'll all learn together more things. It seems as though it's a never-ending journey. The more you do, the more you learn. The more you learn, the more you do. And of course, the more you do, the more you spend. So there is that. But that goes with just about any hobby. So bowling isn't cheap either. So with that in mind, let's go ahead and move on to Atlanta 948. Gary in Woodstock. Gary is in and out with us this evening. And that brings me next to Atlanta 26. Flip in Druid Hills. Flip, how you doing tonight?
I'm doing great, Justin. I hope you and everyone on the net are doing well. Yeah, in terms of equipment and stuff, I may be the only extra licensed ham operator in the United States that doesn't have an HF transmitter.
Oh, I can promise you there are lots of extras that don't have HF. There's a lot of hams that don't have any interest in HF. So, and there's plenty to do in VHF and UHF. So I wouldn't worry too much about that. But before we go any further, I want to see if Atlanta 947 is interested in checking in on the net tonight.
This is Atlanta 947, City 2IR 514. Julie just pulled into the driveway.
Atlanta 947. Julie in the driveway. I've got you in the log, Julie. Can you tell me, do you have any improvements you'd like to make to your radio station this year?
I'm pretty satisfied with what we have in Studio B. I would say you've done excellent work in maintaining and improving our workstation. The only thing that I've noticed is that my radio in the Jeep doesn't seem to be putting it out like it used to, performing, I should say, like it used to. So I don't know. We're going to have to do some troubleshooting on that, see if it's the antenna that we have currently that we're utilizing. So I'm not quite sure what's going on with that, but we definitely need to do some troubleshooting.
Yeah, we may need to go drive up to Alaska and visit Jeff and see if we can use his SWR meter, because that seems to have some magical properties. That's the only thing he did to make improvements to his station. So I don't know. That's an interesting situation. Have you noticed that the Jeep is performing less well lately, or is it just certain areas that you're in?
No, I think it's been less well lately. You know, there for a while I was having trouble, but it was the mic, and so we swapped that out. But now, I don't know what the deal is. But often I find where people will be telling me that they're not getting a good read on me.
All right. Well, I guess we'll have to take a look at that and put that on a list of radio project improvements to make. So you do have improvements you would like to make to your station this year?
That would be a yes, I do. But anyway, I'm going to go ahead and check out. Thank you for taking me, and hope everybody on here has a great evening. I've got packing to do. This is WQIR 514 Atlanta 9473.
All right. Well, I appreciate your comments, and yeah, I guess we'll have to dig into the Jeep and see what we have going on with that radio system there. So one more thing that I need to put on my plate, and that's okay. It'll be fun. So back to Flip. Can you tell me what improvements you plan to make on your station this year, Flip?
Well, sure. You know, one of the criticisms of Flip in Druid Hills is that he's a very methodical person. And I don't do anything in a hurry. But I did, the first step in the HF world was to get my NFED half-wave 40-meter, 130 whatever feet antenna up over the big oak tree in the back. Got that done. And then the next step was to plug that into an SDR play and play around in the HF lower ham band world, which I've been doing, and I've learned a lot, and I'm listening to a lot of neat things, but I can't transmit because I don't have a radio. So someday, sometime soon, I will get an HF radio and move in that direction. I do also want to, on a macro sense, want to move a lot of the UHF, VHF stuff, GMRS stuff off of my roof, and I'm thinking about installing an antenna. My lot is like 450 feet deep, so I'm thinking about installing an antenna about the same height, just a little bit further behind the house so that it's not as obtrusive from the front, which Druid Hills cares a lot about, because Druid Hills is very beautiful. Back to you.
Yes, and that's a consideration that a lot of us have, is installing equipment in a way that doesn't detract from the appearance of our homes, and that's a larger concern for some than for others. Around here, we just stick them in the ground and water them until they grow high enough, and let it go at that. So. Not a big concern with my neighbors. There's no HOA here, so you know, there's not much that they could be concerned about if they wanted to. But in general, my neighbors are pretty easygoing, so shouldn't be. I don't imagine it'll be an issue. But well, that's good stuff. And Flip, I want to say thanks for your offer for. Stepping in, filling in for me here in a couple of weeks, and we haven't really talked about it on the air yet, but we've got a couple of trips coming up. We're gonna be leaving this weekend for Fayetteville, North Carolina, to go spend some time with my son in the Army. We just got some good news from him. He's going to be, he just got his orders, and he's going to be stationed right there at Fort Bragg for, I think, the next 2 years. With the 82nd, and so we'll be continuing these trips to North Carolina for the foreseeable future. But we also, early in July, we are heading up north to spend some time with family and friends up there. So I'll be out for a couple of weeks for nets, and we've got guest net controllers lined up well, we have a guest net controller lined up for at least one of those weeks, and we'll see if we can get the other one covered too. But no reason to panic. If for some reason we don't get both weeks covered, then I would invite everyone to just come on the air on a Thursday evening and jibber jabber about whatever interests the group, and just do a little round robin, and let folks take turns and come on the air. Leave nice big pauses in between each transmission so that people have the opportunity to get in, and it shouldn't be a problem. So, but might not even come to that. We'll just have to see if we get someone to cover the other date or not. So, but thank you, Flip, for stepping in to cover one of those dates. I appreciate that. Yeah, I think I pressed one button too many when I made that last cough. I apologize for that. I hit the one mute button, but it doesn't mute. It mutes the mic between the board and the live stream, just not to the radio. So sorry about that. In any case, let's go ahead and move on. That is the end of my list. So with that in mind, we'll go ahead and take a break at this time for any additional check-ins or any questions or comments. Net Control will stand by.
This is Triumph 20, Whiskey Romeo Mike Victor 225, WRMG 225. My name is Terry. I'm up in Chattooga County on the Somerville repeater, and based at the foot of Lookout Mountain.
Tryon 20. Did you say your name is Terry?
That's correct.
All right, I've got you in the log coming in. You say on the Somerville repeater, but you're at the base of Lookout Mountain?
I live in a community called Paloga, which is nestled right up against the base of Lookout Mountain. So the Somerville repeater is about 10 air miles from me. And this is my first time to check in on the net.
Ah, very good, very good. Well, welcome, Terry. Glad to have you on the net. And is GMRS a new thing for you, or is it just that you're new to come over here?
Well, it's new once again. I was on it years ago. I've been an amateur radio operator since the mid-'70s. And I kind of got away from that, too, but retired a couple of years ago, so I got more time now, so I'm getting back into all of it.
Well, radio is a great way to spend time and money, and there's plenty of opportunity for both. But glad to have you in here. Terry, do you have any plans for improvements to your station this year?
Well, all brand new. The radio I'm talking on now is actually an amateur radio that's been tuned to this frequency. It's a Relation is the name of it. And in the mail today, I got one from Gary. I got a Kenwood TK8628 that he picked up for me. And just got it in the mail today and haven't even got it set up yet. So that's the plan for right now.
I think you're going to love that Kenwood radio. I really like my Kenwood radios. I don't even know how many of them I have. Too many. I have too many radios. But yes, that 862 is that the like a 2-channel or a 4-channel radio? That's perfect in a lot of applications because as it is right here at this desk, I can only hit one repeater right now. So 2-channel radio would be twice as much as I need.
Correct. It's a 2-channel. I've got one set on the Somerville repeater and the other one is a simplex. I have a mobile that will have all the different ones. I went ahead and looked up all the just one repeater that's logged in there, it's been programmed in. But so far so good. The antenna I'm using here is just 10 foot. It's above. It's a professor Lang out of Berkeley College designed this antenna, so it's kind of a homemade deal, but it seems to be doing all right.
Well, very good stuff. Yeah, I have one of those Ed Fong antennas. It's not on this radio, but it's on the other radio that I use regularly. And it you know, if you ever looked at one of those outside of the tube, of course, you know, it comes naked. You have to buy the PVC to put it on. But if you ever look at how that antenna is made, it's a wonder that thing can work at all, because there's, you know, it looks like it's just a cobbled up mess of a bunch of different kinds of piece of wire, and it seems to perform pretty well. I can't really complain about that antenna. And you know, once you put it inside of a radome, a tube, you know, it looks just like any other antenna. So yeah, those homemade antennas can be excellent. So good stuff. Well, great, Terry. I'm glad to have you in here with us, and it's great talking with you. Hope that you come hang out with us often. This is Atlanta 946 WQIR 514, and I'm going to go ahead and take a break once again for any other late check-ins or any additional questions or comments. Net Control standing by.
Atlanta 560, McCoy, and Cedartown checking in and out.
All right, Atlanta 560, McCoy in Cedartown. I've got you in the log as in and out. I appreciate you checking in with us this evening. And I'm going to take one more pause for check-ins, and I think it's probably just time to wrap this thing up. But we'll see if there's anybody else wanting to get in or any other questions or comments. Net Control standing by.
This is Atlanta 138, WRCA 209, Robert in Auburn, Georgia, checking back in. Band practice. Band practice has ended.
All right, and just as I had suggested, we might hear from Robert once band practice is over. And here he is. Robert, do you have any comments or remarks for the group? And do you have any improvements you plan to make to your station this year?
Well, I would like to get a taller antenna, but I seem to be doing okay with what I have right now. But I do have a 83-foot oak tree in my backyard that I could put an antenna at the top of, but I'm afraid of heights. But other than that, I'd like to get my mini repeater set up here for my family.
Yes, the family repeater plan. Lots of folks have been deploying small local repeaters for personal use, and it's a fun project, and there's a lot to be learned from just the exercise of putting a repeater together. So that's cool stuff. So is that something you're looking at actively this year, or is that just you know, something for someday?
Something for someday, but hopefully this year, but something for someday, yeah. But I would like to get a taller, like a Rowan antenna to put in my backyard, because we will be taking the 85-foot oak tree down. It's kind of leaning towards the house, so that's going to be taken down.
Oh my golly. You know, my neighbor had a massive, just incredibly massive, like probably 3.5 feet round, probably not quite 4 feet round, 3.5 feet round, split trunk. So both sides of this thing were 3.5 feet. They were fairly equally balanced, and they made a perfect V. They probably, you know, each one was at 60-degree angle from ground, and they each reached out, and they had massive limbs of foliage around them, and each year we could see the split getting a little bit bigger and a little bit bigger and a little bit bigger, and we had an opportunity to take the one half of it down that we were concerned was going to come down on one of the buildings here, and we had the opportunity. The tree is actually on my neighbor's property, but we had some tree trimmers that were here looking for some extra money, willing to work cheap, and so I told them, I said, if I get my neighbor to pay for half, I'll have you cut that tree down, and the neighbor jumped at the opportunity. So between the two of us, we chipped in, and we paid to have that massive red oak tree cut, just the one half that was endangering that building. And just this last year, the other half fell down. So without that counterweight on it, it just couldn't stand up anymore. So, but yeah, what a thing! I hate to cut these trees down, but you know, sometimes you just don't have a choice, and that's you can't have that risk of that thing coming down on a structure. So I hate to hear that, but I understand it, and I get it. And yeah, I think that roan, you get 50 or 60 feet of roan, and there's all kinds of options, especially once that tree is out of the way. If you can get something just over your canopy, then you've got all kinds of options for antennas and beam antennas, and in particular, I'd love to have 50 or 60 feet of tower with an HF beam on top of it. So not happening probably this year, but I hope to do it someday, and love to get a directional antenna on a rotator up there on a tower. So that's good stuff. I'm glad you made it back in here with us tonight, and I hope that band practice went well. And it's great talking with you this evening, Robert. Do we have anyone else that would like to check in? The North Georgia GMRS Regional Net Control standing by.
Net Control, this is Atlanta 721. I've got a question about grounding.
Atlanta 721 with a question about grounding. Let's go ahead, David. Let's hear what you've got.
So I've got the 3-element Yagi in the attic that I'm talking on now, but I have an Ed Fong J-pole roughly 25 feet off the ground, just attached to the back porch. How would you go about grounding the Ed Fong? Since being it's just the PL 239 on the bottom and the PVC pipe.
Well, in that circumstance, you know, my Ed Fong antenna is on a steel mast, and the mast is grounded with an actual ground wire that's bonded to the mast that goes out and travels, 5 feet or so, just underneath the foliage or the grass, just an inch or so into the dirt, and then it 4 or 5. Yeah, probably not even 4 feet to a ground rod, and then it's bonded to that ground rod. And then there's also other ground rods in the area that are also bonded together. But so that's the thing. That's where my grounding for my Ed Fong comes from. Is A, it comes from the mast being grounded. B, it comes from the coax. The shield on the coax is grounded. Where it enters the structure in that steel box, the coax is grounded, through that, and then there's a lightning arrestor right there as it enters that steel box. So that lightning arrestor is the first thing that coax sees when it comes into the structure, and that's very well grounded. So, and then of course the radios themselves are also grounded. And all of that goes back and ties to a common single point on that first ground rod. And then, so it's all bonded together there. Does that answer your question?
Yes, sir, it does. Yeah, because I've just got the cable running from the Ed Fong directly to radio. It's not a very long run, so it just runs directly to. I guess I need to put a break in between, and as we ground into that break, it goes from there. The one in the attic, is that one semi-shielded?
Well, you know, in a lot of theory, yes, it's semi-shielded because we think that lightning is always going to hit, the whatever it's closest to. So the roof should be closer than the antenna, so it should hit your roof and miss your antenna. But the reality is that lightning does whatever it wants, and Houston, Atlanta 780 is a perfect example of that. He's got a handful of antennas sticking up well above his roof line, and the lightning skipped all of those antennas and hit his attic and set it on fire. So we can't always know for sure what attic is going to do or what lightning is going to do or how it's going to behave. So I would recommend that we treat all antennas, whether they're indoors or outdoors. I would recommend that we ground them just as if they were outdoors. Now, in a brand new setup and you've got a ways to go and you've got improvements to make along the way, this is just one more thing. We understand. I mean, my station wasn't up to snuff when we first came on the air. I'll tell you exactly what my first station was. It was a TK880, 25 watt, and it was actually physically mounted to a power supply. And well, it's the exact same radio that Atlanta 911 has at her house today. So the radio itself is mounted to the power supply. The power supply is an Astron, I believe, has a nifty little speaker in the front panel that you can plug into the back of the radio and utilize that 3 or 4 inch, I don't remember how big it is, that speaker, and it sounds very nice. And so that radio was connected to a mag mount antenna, and that mag mount antenna was kind of wedged at a 45-degree angle on top of a bookcase in a bedroom. That was our first legit GMRS radio station here, and it's kind of an interesting story. The way that station came to be is Atlanta 60 came by to visit, and he was inspecting my Roan Tower, which is a rusty, unsafe, dilapidated structure that needs to be brought down, but we're going to let gravity do that, I think, in probably a year or two. But in any case, while he was here doing that, Julie had just become the North Georgia GMRS net controller, and while he was here to inspect that, without me knowing about it, he had set that radio up for Julie to use for net control, and that was our first station. So there was no grounding whatsoever, except for the ground provided through the 3-prong plug on the power supply. So we all start there, but as we make improvements to our station, we want to do the things that are going to make it safe to operate and make it able to operate. Like, for instance, I don't unplug things when storms come. I don't shut things off. I don't disconnect antennas or any of those things. I'm counting on the grounding system here to handle it, because I've modeled my grounding system after the grounding system that I see in commercial installations, and I've used much of the same equipment, and I've arranged my stuff in the way that I see being done at commercial sites, and those sites operate in all weather and all conditions. So it's just something that you need to incrementally step towards and set that as part of your goal for developing your station and improvements. And in time, you'll get there.
I will do. Thank you for the information. Yeah, I've seen your post on Facebook. Mark would have replicate that. I also have the TK880 on my computer. All in one more kit. Recently heard I need to separate my radio from my power supply. So that's another goal I got to get done, is move my power supply further from the radio.
Ah, yes, and more radios and more power supplies, more power. Yes, that's what we need. I love my 880. Julie has an 880H out there in the Jeep. and that's a great radio. Love the 880. It's very simple. It's very quick to make channel changes and volume changes. There's not so many buttons on. Some of these radios have so many stupid buttons on them, and you know, the buttons all have these little icons on them instead of words or names or numbers, and they can be programmed to do different things. And so once you learn how to operate your radio, you could be sitting in front of somebody else's radio that is the same make and model and not have any idea how to operate it because the buttons don't do the same thing. That can throw you for a bit of a loop sometimes, but the ability to program your radios is one of the things too that will bring you a lot of satisfaction, where you can customize the what gets displayed on the panel and make different behaviors of the radio more to your liking. So lots of opportunities, and I think you're going to love your Kenwood radios. I know I do. So with that, let's go ahead and one more time see if there are any other questions or comments. Any other late check-ins? Net Control standing by.
This is 97 29. David back from the Home Depot. Got out alive.
All right, Net Control acknowledging Atlanta 295, Scott from Dallas, returning from date night, and also acknowledging Noonan 29, returning from, I'm not sure what he's returning from, but he is actually back in time. At least that's what my note says. So we'll just put that up there on the screen and for what that's worth. But let me go ahead and grab Atlanta 295 Scott in Dallas, and let's find out where Scott and Debbie went for date night.
Good evening. So date night is every Thursday night we go to a little restaurant. It's actually a Pizza Heaven, and we do trivia night there every Thursday night, along with our mother-in-law and about 8 friends, and we just have a good gathering. It's great fun, great time, nice evening out.
Well, fantastic. Well, Scott, can you tell me, do you have any improvements that you plan to make to your station this year?
I'm pretty much set with what I need as far as in the house station. I am always playing around with the mobile, and I would definitely like to improve on the ham side of my mobile and get a 5/8 wave antenna for the 2-meter. I'm just running quarter wave, and I'm hoping maybe a 5/8 will help me reach out just a little bit further, but that's about it.
Well, fantastic stuff, and yeah, there's no end to what we can do to, you know, especially when it comes to antennas. Yeah, there's just no end to what you can do in terms of making this improvement or that improvement. Sometimes we buy a better antenna and find out it doesn't work as well as we'd hoped. But hopefully the 5/8 wave will do the trick. I'm not a fan of the quarter wave antenna. I've just not had good success with them. I know many others have, but personally, I've found that they do not perform to my satisfaction. So on all of our mobile units, we have a tram 5/8 wave, and that seems to have been a much better antenna for us than the quarter wave. But as pointed out earlier in the net, we have an issue with Julie's Jeep, so I may need to investigate that. It could just be something as simple as the antenna needs to be tightened down on the NMO mount. So might need to just go out there and take a minute and see if that's the case. So good stuff. Well, thank you, Scott, and glad to hear from you this evening, and glad you made it back from date night early enough to be able to get on the air. Next, I have Noonan 29, who also checked in earlier, and he may be back in time, is what my note says. So, Noonan 29, do you have any? Can you tell me a little bit about your station, and do you have any improvements you plan to make this year?
Well. Like most of this large portion of the station improvements is directly related to
how deep you want to dig into your pocket.
Yeah.
I'm kind of putting the pocket digging thing on hold just so that I can actually start implementing and using a lot of the stuff that I've already gotten acquired over time. You know, and in fact, I even moved a bunch here. I've got a roof tower, a Glen Martin 19-foot roof tower that needs to go on the roof, and then another about probably 15-foot heavy gauge mast that'll go into that with the rotator. Put the beam that I already have up there, the 17-foot VHF UHF antenna up there, lift the GMRS one off to the side, and it'll get higher in the air too. I got that to do. I wanted to try to get it done before it got hot, but well, it already got hot. So I guess we're going to be working in the heat. And to clarify, I am back in time, as time has gone by since I checked in. I went to the Home Depot, and I got out of there alive, and I think I couldn't believe it, but I actually spent $7 there. That may be a new low record. This is 29 WRCU 796. That's next.
Oh yes, you know there was a time when it seemed as though every single time we went into Lowe's, it was $100. It was $100. Whether I was going to get parts for a project or whether I was going to get materials for the yard, whatever I went to Lowe's for, it was $100. And man, I got so tired. We'd go 2 or 3 times in a month, and I get the bill for $300-400 at Lowe's, and man, it's just got to stop. So we just quit going. And what a difference that makes. Now, there's projects that have gone undone, and that's the downside is if you don't go to get materials, then you don't have materials. But in some cases, we found better alternatives. Like, for instance, we used to wait for the sale to come on for mulch, where they have 5 bags for $10. And we go buy, you know, $40 or $50 worth of mulch. Well, I found that I can have a whole trailer load of mulch for $35. It's more material, it's less money, and it's pretty easy to do. So some of that spending that we did at Lowe's was probably frivolous, wasteful, and but yeah, I try to stay away from those places because it seems like every time I go, it's $100. Same thing at Costco. You can't get out of Costco for less than $100.
Used to call Costco the $300 club, but same thing, just don't go as often, and it's not quite so painful. Okay, next. I hope I'm not the tail gunner, but I think I might be. WRCU 796. Would have liked to have heard what everybody else was going to do, but I had to go get a light for the shack. That's what I went to Home Depot for, was the bulb for the light, the desk lamp that goes over top of all the radios. So it's either have the room lit up like a stadium, or the nice soft white fluorescent light that just kind of lights nicely over the radio. So had to feel comfortable. 70 degrees. 29 WRCU 796.
Very good. Yes, and yeah, the $300 trips to Costco. We've actually made several of those as well. I hate to admit it, but it has happened. But here lately, I think we've been able to pare that down quite a bit. Just not getting the stuff. We just get what we need and leave everything else behind. And that, I think, has been a big help. Is instead of going there to go shopping, we've been going there to get supplies. And just by changing that approach seems to have made a big difference. So hopefully that'll work. We can stick with it. We'll see. But let me go ahead and break one more time for any other late check-ins. I'd hate to leave anyone out, but it is time to wrap this thing up. Not that we have a schedule to keep or anything, but we've gone long, and folks are probably tired of listening. So, do we have any other late check-ins for North Georgia GMRS?
McDonough 22 with a comment for net control.
No, somebody had to take that tail gunner spot away from Marty and Tyrone. But McDonough 22, go ahead.
Hey, Roger. Yeah, just in response to my earlier VTech that had the volume control. I was just going to say, I don't know if that's a widespread thing or not. One of my VTechs had a problem with the volume pot. I normally would turn the radio on and turn it up to the volume so I could hear calls. And when I would turn the volume control down, you know, I could hear callers. So I found out when my volume control was all the way up, it kind of just killed the whole volume. So other than that, it works fine. So I would just turn it on and run it a little bit low. So, sorry, that was my phone going off. But anyway, I was 1 month away from the warranty running out on that unit, and I sent it back to BTech, and they sent me a whole brand new radio. And so I was just going to throw that in there. And also, I just noticed one of our premier members I haven't heard from in a while, ATL 36. And I was going to ask you if there's any news or, you know, is he on super secret CIA assignment or just haven't heard from Bill in a while and was wondering about him. So I'll turn it back to net control.
Well, yeah, I appreciate your comments about the V1 and the volume issue. I think that Gary's radio is well out of warranty, so we just need to probably put a different radio in his hands, but we'll see what plays out with that. But yes, Atlanta 36, I've corresponded with him by way of email just recently, and he indicates that he's still around and that he is anxious to get back into radio and into North Georgia GMRS radio in particular. I had sent an email out asking for volunteers to fill in for me for those 2 weeks while I'm going to be gone. And that's what he had responded to. And he apologized that he's not going to be able to fill in because work is just burying him right now. So let's celebrate that he has gainful employment and plenty of it. And I think at some point that will ease off. But for now, he's going to capitalize on the opportunity. So I think Atlanta 36 will be back, but for the time being, he's just too busy to hang out with us. Probably exhausted. Not entirely clear, but he may even be working second shift, and if that's the case, it would be, it'd be just impossible to make the net with any kind of regularity. So, with that in mind, we'll go ahead and I think we're going to go ahead and wrap this thing up. If anyone tried to get in and couldn't, I apologize. Excuse me. Sorry about that. It kind of snuck up on me out of the blue. But let's go ahead and wrap this thing up. We've got 38 check-ins at this point. That includes myself. So this will conclude the North Georgia GMRS Regional Net. Net Control will now be returning the repeaters back to normal use. Everyone who's signed in should sign out. I'd like to thank all of you for allowing me to serve as your net control this evening. Good night, everyone. This is Atlanta 946, WQYR 514, and I'll be clear. All right, YouTube folks, thanks so much for hanging out with us. I'm going to go ahead and wrap this thing up here. And again, thank you. We'll look forward to hanging out with you again very, very soon. Good night, everyone.
Everyone coming in crystal clear. Them threes, everyone.
WRMB 225, trying 20.